Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us some really thought-provoking material this time. It tackles this huge question. How do we make the economy actually work for, well, everyone in society, not just a select few?
Yeah, a fundamental challenge.
And you said you wanted to get a grip on this quickly, but also thoroughly. So that's our goal today. We're diving into your sources, especially this chapter you sent, Participatory Economics and Corporate Accountability.
Right.
Trying to pull out the key ideas on reshaping, the whole corporation-society relationship.
Absolutely. And at the core, really, is this challenge to the old idea.
Shareholder profit being king.
Exactly. That corporations only exist to make money for shareholders. The material you sent makes a pretty compelling case that we need to shift.
Or it's what exactly?
Towards a system that genuinely considers, a much wider group of stakeholders.
Okay.
So our mission here is to pin down the actual proposals. How do we make companies more accountable to employees, customers, communities, the environment, too?
Right. And explore this participatory economics idea.
Yes, and see how it all connects. Hopefully find those aha moments you mentioned.
That sounds good. Let's start with that core problem then, shareholder primacy, the traditional view.
Yeah, the idea that the main, maybe the only duty is maximizing profit for the people who own shares.
That's been the standard thinking for, decades, hasn't it?
For a very long time. But what your source material really highlights is this growing counter-argument. A kind of realization, maybe, that how we produce things needs to connect more with broader social values.
So it's not just about the final profit figure.
Right. It's about the impact all along the way.
Interestingly, this isn't just some academic debate, is it? The document points to that Business Roundtable statement in 2019.
Oh, yeah, that was quite something. Almost 200 CEOs from major companies.
Big names.
Huge names. Publicly saying they commit to serving all stakeholders. Employees, customers, communities.
Not just shareholders.
Yeah.
That felt like a real potential shift, more than just PR.
It did feel significant. I mean, when you have that many top leaders acknowledging a wider responsibility, it suggests something's changing.
Even if it's just talk for now.
Even if it's partly rhetorical, yes. It maybe shows they recognize that just focusing on shareholders might not be sustainable long term, considering social stability, legitimacy.
So businesses operate within society, not separate from it.
Exactly. And that, as the source argues, gives us a foundation to build on. New norms, new policies, maybe. It touches on those multiple perspectives you were after.
Okay, so if we agree shareholder primacy has limits, what are the tangible things we can do to move towards this stakeholder capitalism idea?
Right, the concrete steps. The material digs into some interesting possibilities. Legal reform is a key one.
Legal reform, how?
Well, like mandating public benefit clauses, putting them right into the company's official charter.
So it's not just a suggestion, it's legally binding.
That's the idea. It would legally require directors to actively consider the social and environmental impact of their decisions, a bit like those benefit corporation laws that already exist in some places.
Okay. So you embed that responsibility right into the company's legal core.
Precisely.
And another idea that jumped out was about empowering stakeholders inside the company, like worker representation on boards, the German example.
Yes, co-determination in Germany. It's fascinating.
Tell me more about that. How does it actually work?
Well, basically, by law, for larger companies, a certain number of seats on their supervisory board, that's kind of like the main oversight board, have to be filled by elected employee representatives.
So workers get a direct say in big decisions.
A direct and often powerful voice, on things like major investments, closing plans, big changes to working conditions.
I see. So if employees are right there at the table.
It can act as a real check, on decisions that might just benefit the top brass or shareholders, but hurt the workforce or the community.
Right, like internal checks and balances.
Yeah.
Preventing harm to other stakeholders.
Exactly.
And the source also talks a lot about profit sharing, ownership schemes, things like that. How do they fit in?
Well, things like employee stock options or putting some profits into employee trusts or even community development funds. They're powerful because they directly link the financial health of employees and the community to the company's success.
So everyone's interests are more aligned.
Kind of. When employees have a real stake through ownership or profit sharing, it can build a stronger sense of, agency, shared responsibility, like you're all in it together.
Makes sense. It's not just about distributing wealth more fairly, but fostering that shared purpose.
Exactly. A shared destiny, almost.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. ESG standards and regulation. We hear ESG, environmental, social governance all the time. But how do we make sure it actually, means something?
That is the critical question, isn't it? Your source rightly says, look, strong ESG standards are vital, but they need teeth.
Teeth like?
Like robust, consistent enforcement of the basics, environmental rules, labor laws. ESG itself covers a lot, right? Environment is the planet impact. Social is about people, employees, customers, communities, and governance is leadership, internal systems, accountability.
Right.
But the document also brings up actively incentivizing good behavior, like tax breaks maybe, or grants for companies that go above and beyond on clean energy or treating workers well.
Kind of like the German renewable energy subsidies.
Exactly like that, using public policy proactively to steer companies towards societal goals.
And on the flip side, what about penalties for bad behavior?
Oh, the document is clear on that too. It argues for real consequences. Significant fines, sure, but also structural penalties.
Structural penalties.
Yeah, things that might force changes in how the company operates, and in extreme cases, even potentially revoking the company's charter to operate.
Wow, taking away their license to exist, essentially.
That's the ultimate backstop, yeah. The idea is that companies have this social license to operate, and it's not guaranteed forever. They have to keep earning it by meeting society's standards and expectations.
And the VW emissions scandal is mentioned as a cautionary tale.
A really stark one. Deliberately cheating on emissions tests, putting profits way ahead of regulations and public trust.
With huge environmental and health costs.
Absolutely. And while VW faced big fines, the point is, a better system should prevent that kind of thing from happening in the first place. The penalties need to be a real deterrent.
And what about this idea of citizen auditing councils? That sounds different.
It's a really interesting proposal. The idea is setting up independent groups, citizens, experts to actually review companies' social impact reports.
And they'd have real power.
Potentially, yes. They could flag concerns to regulators, maybe even take legal action if a company seems to be violating its social license or harming the public interest.
It kind of blurs the lines between the economy and civic life.
It really does. A much more direct, participatory kind of public oversight.
Which leads us nicely into this whole theme of integrating corporate and community interests more closely, moving beyond that old adversarial view of government versus business.
Exactly. The source suggests reframing it. Thinking of government and business not as opponents, but as potential partners working towards shared goals.
Like what kind of goals?
Well, maybe government coordinating with industries on job creation targets or funding specific research or developing certain regions.
By public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
Reframing those two.
Yeah, making sure the main focus is genuinely on public benefit. Things like affordable housing or getting internet to underserved areas, using corporate money and know-how, but with strong public oversight.
Kind of like that creating shared value idea, where companies profit by solving social problems.
Very much aligned with that, yes. Finding ways for corporate success and societal progress to go hand in hand.
But if government and corporations are working more closely, how do you prevent, dodgy deals or undue influence? Transparency seems key.
Absolutely critical. The document really stresses this. Major interactions between state officials and corporations should be, well, publicly documented, open.
To cut down on backroom lobbying.
Precisely. Reduce the chances for opaque influence. It even mentions this hypothetical idea of civic coins.
The Civic Coins.
Yeah, like instead of lobbying with money, companies earn influence through positive social impact. It's theoretical, but it points towards rethinking how influence works.
Interesting. And we shouldn't forget about alternative business models, right? The source mentions cooperatives, social enterprises.
Definitely. Things like worker co-ops, credit unions, mutual companies, they often have community and employee well-being built into their structure from the start.
So supporting them could diversify the economy.
That's the argument. Using things like favorable tax rules or better access to capital to encourage these models makes the whole ecosystem more resilient, less dominated by just one type of corporation.
Okay, now this next idea from the source material, it's quite a leap. Societal government participation in corporate leadership. That sounds major.
It is definitely thought-provoking. The model proposed suggests that large and medium-sized companies would operate with significant government auditing and maybe even participation.
So government officials sitting on boards or something else.
It's more nuanced. The idea isn't outright nationalization. It's about integrating public oversight more directly. One really fascinating concept suggested is that CEOs and some top executives
Yes.
would actually transition to being government employees, paid by the state.
Paid by the state, but still chosen by the company.
Yes, selected by the company based on merit, using their usual processes, but they'd be state employed.
So they'd have this dual role.
Yeah.
Leading the company, but also ensuring it aligns with societal goals. Goals set through, what, direct democracy.
That's the core of it. They still need to be effective business leaders using their expertise, but their job description expands. It explicitly includes steering the company towards societal values, ensuring transparency, following regulations.
Wow, that's a fundamental shift in governance.
It really is, building accountability right into the leadership structure.
And the source mentions this, aims to stop companies just treating fines as a cost of doing business.
Exactly. Because under this model, those executives, now also government employees, could be held personally liable for illegal decisions.
Personally liable, meaning?
Meaning serious consequences, big financial penalties, maybe even prison time, if they knowingly lead the company into illegal or really harmful actions.
That changes the stakes considerably. It's not just the corporation paying a fine anymore.
Precisely. It shifts responsibility directly to the decision makers.
Okay, but wouldn't all this government oversight create massive bureaucracy? Slow everything down, stifle innovation. That's the immediate worry, isn't it?
It's a very valid concern, and the source material does address it. It acknowledges that risk.
And suggests solutions.
Yes. Things like really clear, efficient processes. Using technology blockchain is mentioned for transparency without tons of paperwork. Delegating authority smartly. Constant monitoring and feedback loops.
So using tech, good management, clear rules.
Right. Adopting agile practices, maybe. Streamlining compliance. It's about finding that balance, strong accountability, without killing efficiency or innovation. Maybe starting with pilot projects, lots of collaboration.
Okay. And finally, what about global companies? In a place like Canada, how do you ensure multinationals align with Canadian values and rules?
The source argues they absolutely should be held to Canadian standards if they have a significant presence here.
Oh, more transparency.
Yes, things like public disclosure of their activities. And again, potentially that idea of key execs becoming government employees here.
And using tech like blockchain for compliance.
That's suggested too, as a way to track compliance efficiently, maybe even set an international example. But it also stresses the need for dialogue.
Dialogue between who?
Between the companies and the government oversight bodies. Negotiation, collaboration, using forums, mediation, maybe flexible compliance pathways sometimes. Building trust is key for it to work smoothly.
And the source also points out that doing good, strong ESG might actually be good for business financially. It's not always a trade-off.
Increasingly, the evidence points that way. Research from places like NYU Stern, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. It shows a positive link between good ESG practices and financial performance.
Why is that?
Better risk management, often. More efficiency, saving costs. Better reputation, attracting talent and customers. Easier access to capital sometimes. Smoother sailing with regulators. It suggests aligning with societal values isn't just a cost. It can actually drive long-term success.
Okay. So to kind of wrap this up for you, our listener, this deep dive has really shown a potential major shift, hasn't it? Moving from just shareholder profits to this broader idea of stakeholder capitalism. We looked at concrete ways to get there: legal changes, worker power, strong ESG rules.
And that integration of corporate and community interests, plus the really novel idea of government participation in leadership.
Right. And making sure global players follow local values. The big picture seems to be an economy where success isn't just profit, but also social value.
Yeah.
Less corporate impunity, more participation.
That's the core theme running through it all.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, building on all this. Considering these big potential changes in corporate accountability, what do you think are the biggest hurdles to actually making them happen? The real-world challenges.
Yeah, that's a huge question. And maybe also, what's the role for individuals, for citizens like you, in pushing this evolution forward? Something to definitely keep thinking about after this deep dive.